Welcome back, I'm GTGD, and in this video I'm going to go over creating tile maps, creating a few sprites so that I can paint in the tile map. I'll put in light as well. I'll just show a bit about how to do painting on the tile map, especially the random brush, which is quite handy. Okay, let's get into Unity. Okay, so in Unity it's super easy to make a tile map. Just go to create, just right click and then 2D object and create a tile map. Here a rectangular one, and that's going to create one for us, and we can name it whatever we want to name it. I am going to change the name. It creates a grid object already, and we can have multiple tile maps underneath a single grid, so you can basically have layers of content for your game basically, and we're going to do that. So but at first I'm just going to leave it at this. I mean, I need to make some sprites, right? Otherwise I can't see anything. I can't really interact or do anything much really. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over and start making some really basic art. So in my case I'm going to use a free online software that I find works really well for what I need. I also have Aseprite. That's another option, but obviously that's a paid option. There are other options. You could even use paint.net or something like that. It's pixel art, so it's the most basic sort of drawing that we can possibly do. Suits me since I can't draw, so I'm going to start drawing something very, very primitive. So new drawing. I'm going to take the size 64 pixels by 64 pixels for my textures. I don't need high resolution at all. And in general, try to keep your textures in power of 2. So like I think that's like 16, 32, 64, 128, that sort of, those sort of sizes, 256. So keep them in those sizes, and it's probably got something to do with how the graphics card processes and crunches through the numbers and stuff. That's why those numbers are the ones favorable for images, for texture files. Anyway, so I'm just going to do 64 by 64, and I'm just going to create a new drawing. Okay, and let's take that. Okay, so that's our brand new canvas there. On the right side is bits about layers, so I can create layers here. Here are my colors that I can select. Here are my tools. Oops, I zoomed in there with the mouse wheel. I can download this as a PNG, and the file that you will save to your computer as well is called a .pixel, and that's basically this file here. And it's pretty neat. You can actually load the pixels files from your computer and reuse them or continue working or whatever. So it's very, very good in that way, and I just found it very easy to use, and that's why I'm using it. Okay, now I want to make some super basic grass texture, so I'm just going to go through this color wizard here, or palette, or whatever it's called, and actually select some colors and start making some textures. Let's see. So I want some greens. So I guess those are the greens. So, why don't I just make that a bit bigger, and not too big. There we go. So I'll pick one of these. Okay. So I have an option. I can use the pencil tool, which I will actually. I'm just going to make this bigger to make it like 4 by 4 pixels big. So that way I can just do dots on the thing. So my grass is going to be very basic. So my world is going to be black in color. And I'm going to do sort of Ultima sort of style, Ultima 4-ish style of graphics. I use that very loosely. And just going to put some things that sort of represent grass. And I like the effect. I mean, I like it personally. So I'm just going to take a few of those, put them here, just quite randomly. What I will just be aware of is not putting, like if I put it on the border, okay, but I won't put something else on the other side too close, because these are tiling textures. So here I'll put something close, but I won't put something close over here. Okay, so I'll just put something more. I'll put another one here. That might be getting a little close to the edge. Maybe, maybe not. Whatever. It's something just to do. Okay, and I think that's enough for this particular texture. What I'm going to do now is duplicate that layer. because I want to do a certain effect. I don't want it to look too sharp in Unity. I don't want this to look too sharp, otherwise it's too harsh. And I do realize that actually I put this one too close to the border. So I can use the select tool and grab this, super useful in that way, and just move it. And I can just do that too and just delete it as well. And what I'm seeing there is the other layer. That's why I'm getting confused. So if I can select that, I can just move it a bit. And I'll actually delete this one right here. I'll just duplicate this layer again. And what I'm going to do now is to draw some lines, single pixel lines with the same color actually. I'm going to do the same color. Something like that. Basically create this effect. And I'm going to change the transparency on both of them. So let's go ahead, do that. So yeah, pixel art is the fastest sort of thing that can be drawn, I think. Because I guess it's sketch, concept, and real thing all at the same time. Okay, so I've got that done now, and what else am I gonna do? I'm thinking about it. I can do the changing colors and stuff right now, or because what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna make like 4 different grass textures, some with different sort of placement, slightly different placement, some with different colors. But what I do need to do here is on these, and I probably, if I were sensible, I'd probably rename them something anyway. So anyway, so I'll just call this one grass 1. I'll call this one, so I just click this one here, layer properties, and I'll call this grass 1 outline. And what I'm going to do now is the first one, the grass one, I'm going to set its opacity down to like 60%. And on grass 1 outline, I'm going to set it to like 40%. So this will give a soft sort of looking grass-ish texture in Unity. It won't look so harsh. Otherwise, if I leave it at full opacity, it'll look very harsh. You'll notice the sharp lines and stuff. It doesn't quite suit what I'm trying to do here. Okay, so now that I've got these two done, I do want to basically duplicate this. So I will do that, duplicate it, and I'll just move it up. And I'm going to call this grass 2. And for grass 2, why don't I move? And I'll hide these other ones, the outlines and the grass 1. Now for grass 2, I'm going to move a few of these, just move them a little bit randomly like that. So then I'll have to duplicate the outline and also, oops, excuse me, and I'll have to move that as well. So just doing a bit of fiddling here, like that. Move a bit like that. And then I'm going to give a bit of different color here. So I'm going to pick something quite different, actually. So then I'll take the paint bucket tool and drop it on. And not too much, maybe 2 of them. I think 2 of them is enough. And then I'm going to take our outline, I'll duplicate that layer, and I'll move it up, and I'll call it grass 2 outline. And then I'll turn it on and just reposition that. So I will turn off, I won't turn it off, rather. I'll just grab this and then just reposition the outline so it roughly matches. And if to help me, I'm just going to bump up the opacity there just in the meantime. And that's about fine. Grab this one, move this there too. Just make sure this one is in the correct location, which it appears to be so. Grab this one, move it over here. Do the same for this. Okay. there for that one. This one too. And now I'll set it down to 40% again. And what I'll do is I'll, again, just fill the color. Same type of color. Okay, so that's pretty good. So that's the next grass done. And you know what? I'm not going to stop there, of course. I'll make one more. Actually, I'll just make one more. And I'll duplicate this grass too. Move it up. Okay, just rename it. Call it grass 3. Okay, so that's grass 3. And grass 3, I'll grab, I guess, these again. Move them a little bit. Move this one inside. Move this one over here. Move that a little bit that way. Just totally sort of making it look a little bit different. And in this one, I'm going to use another color. I'm going to take like an orange. So perhaps I can put it on there and on there, those two. And then, of course, I need to sort out my outline. So I'll go ahead and duplicate this outline, move it up, and just rename it. Just call it grass 3 outline. Okay, and I'll turn that on, bump up the opacity so I can see it easily. Once again, just move these over. There we go. Just check. Looks like I didn't move that one. That's alright. Okay, it's all very good. Now I'll set the opacity back down. And I'll fill the color on those two that I changed. So that's it. So now I've got my grasses done. And all I have to do now, so I've got this. I'm going to save this as a file, save as pixel, and I'll just call it grass. Done. It'll save to my downloads folder. And again, I'm going to download this as well. So download PNG, and you'll go to your folder. Just rename it. Rename it like grass 3. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn these off now. Turn on grass 2. Do the same thing. File, download the PNG, and go ahead here as well. Turn it off. Grass 1. Again, download the PNG. Okay, we're done. Okay, so I'll just rename this. I'll call it grass 1. This one was grass 2. That's grass 3. And I'm just going to cut all of these and take them over to Unity. So in Unity, I'll make a new folder, and I'll just call it textures. And open that up inside of Windows. Alright, and just bring them all over. Okay, so going back to Unity, let's go have a look at our textures. So there are our sprites, and I do need to adjust the settings on these sprites, okay? So right now, it's correct that it's a 2D UI, but pixels per unit, it's not 100, it's 64. Otherwise, we'll have a big border around the texture. And the mesh type, I'm just going to call it full rect. I won't ask it to try and compress it. That's what I just prefer. For whatever reason, I was finding that full rect works better with my tile map situation. And this doesn't really matter because the max size is 64, but out of habit, you'll just see me be setting it to 64. Now, filter mode. Now, if you want your textures to look really sharp, and you're making pixel art where you want it to look really sharp, you will turn filter mode to point, so no filter. But in my case, I actually want them to look blurry at the edges, almost like an anti-aliasing without applying that at all for me. So that's the effect that I like. I mean, that's just what I like. Now, what I could have done, I think I could have selected all of these. Maybe I can't. I'm not sure if I can. Let me just try it anyway. I think I can. Yeah, I can just set to I could have selected all of them at once and just edited them all in one go. So I'm just going to do that, set it to trilinear, and I set this to full rect, and just hit apply. And so now they're all set up. Now I need to create a tile map. So coming back here, you see here, I need to create this palette. So I'm just going to name it new palette. I mean, it really doesn't matter. So, okay, let's create it. It'll ask where do I want to save it. So I'll save it right here. Okay, so I've saved it right here. And, okay, I just need to grab these and basically drag them, put them on here. So, yeah, it's not anything difficult at all. Just put them in. It's going to ask me to make some asset files. So I'll select these, and it'll just made the asset files for me right there, which is very, very good. Let's see, if I don't like how it's put them together for whatever reason, I can select it. I can then move it, just like that. So what I did is I put it on edit mode. I selected the item, then I used the move tool, and then I moved the sprite over here in our tile palette. Okay, so I'll just turn off edit mode there. So I'm done with that. And there's some other settings here too. So if you select something, you can see that there's some stuff here where you can actually delete. There is a delete. That's how you can delete a sprite from your tile palette. Is you go into edit, select it, and then you can delete it. Now let's have a look at these tile assets themselves. This is where you can set whether it has a sprite or not. And in my case, I'm just going to select a lot of them. And I mean, not a sprite, correction, whether it has a collider or not, whether it's going to generate a collider. Now, there's no gravity in this game. I mean, it's a 2D game. There's no gravity. The player's not going to fall through the XY plane. There's nothing to fall through. I don't need a collider for the grass layer. So I'm going to turn that off. I don't want it to be part of the nav mesh or anything. So I've turned the collider type off. You can do other things. We are going to do this. You can open up the sprite editor, and you can actually edit the borders. And the one that's really important is the custom physics shape. So we are going to use this. We are actually going to do this when I'm showing about sorting order and having stuff appear in front of other things or behind other things based on their Y position. This becomes a bit more important. So then we'll make a custom collider shape basically. So then yeah, it'll change the way it takes up space on the nav mesh. And another thing, I was just having a look. If I remember correctly, secondary textures, I don't use any, but I think if you have normal maps or something, that's where you put it in here. I'd have to have a look into it more to do that. But I mean, I don't have anything like that. I'm not using any normal maps or anything like that. So I'm basically done here. I haven't actually made any changes, so I'll just discard that entirely. Now we can actually paint. So you can use the picker tool. You can zoom in here, and you can paint, and you can see it. Well, it looks black. You know, why is the world looking black? Because it doesn't have any light. And basically, our tile map renderer has a material type of sprite lit default, which is good. If you don't have sprite lit default, then you will want to put the sprite lit default material there. It's inside the universal RP folder. I just lock that since I was wanting to look at that, and I look for the relevant material. So let's find that materials. There we go. So inside of universal RP materials, sprite lit default, that is the material that you want to apply to your tile map. So now we can use light. So inside of the hierarchy, let's create a light. Let's create a global light 2D. And there we go. Now we can actually see the textures. It's lit up. So that's our light 2D done. Let's click on it. Just have a look inside of it. So unlock this now. Light 2D. You can change the color of the light, obviously how intense it is, etc. That's way too intense. But that's it. I'm just going to leave it alone. I just liked it as it was. It just seemed just nice to me. Now I don't want, is he in the game view? See, this is what if I maximize on play here, hit play. In our game view, it's just a blue world with these grass representation textures here, right? And I don't want blue, because I want black. So I'm going to go to the main camera, and underneath the environment, I have background type solid color, which is suited for 2D. That's what it is. In 3D, you might have skybox. If you're having a skybox in there, you know, with the sky and sun and all that. So then you pick skybox. But here it's solid color. So I'm just going to change the background color from this default down to black. And that's it. So now the color of the world is suited to me. I mean, this is a technique you can use for other type of, it's very suitable for, very useful for top-down games is what I'm trying to say. Because if your world was a grassy green and you're very good at your artwork, you may just make some grass sprites and stuff, and you'll just color your world green instead. So you just color your world not that green, and you know, a nice color of green, see, whatever. But you would color your world that color, and then you just have the sprites where you needed them. So it is very handy in that way. It's a pretty neat way to control the color of the world. So I'm just going to save my progress so far. So coming back to the tile map, I need to set up more tile maps. I also wanted to show you how to use the brushes. So in your tile palette, there's more to this. So if I click on here, it's not just a default brush. There is a random brush. There's a couple of brushes, but the one that I use for this, for painting grass, because I want to paint all of them in a random style, is the random brush. And I'm just going to have to pull that up. So pull this bar up a bit and pull this up too, so I can see a bit more. And I'm going to say I've got 3 tiles. So random brush, 3 tiles, right? And I need to bring in my tiles. So I'm just going to pick the first one is grass 1. The next one is grass 2. And the last one is grass 3. Okay, so that's my tiles selected. And if I pick the paintbrush tool, oh well, it's not very fast if I can only paint, you know, 1 square, right? So if I press Control and I see the blue line appearing there in the scene view, now I've got a bigger painting area, and that's it. So I just pressed Control and created that. Now if I wanted to go back to a single cube, then I press Control again, and then it'll just turn blue, and then I let go of my left click. So if again, Control, press left click, expand to the size you want, and now that's your painting brush size, and it's all random. You can see the random mess that I'm making here. Oh well, whatever, I'm happy. Well, there probably should be some logic to how far I go. I probably shouldn't go too far, because that's just deeply wasteful. And I do want to make some like mountain textures and stuff. Probably in the next video. Actually, in the next video, I'll be making a lot more of these pixel arts and applying them in the world. Anyway, that's my painting done. So I'm just going to reduce the brush size. So Control, left click, single. And that's it. Let go, and it's all done there. So I've got now my world painted. I've got my tile map with something actually on it. And what I want to do, I'm just going to minimize this bit here. Have a look in here. The important thing is, for your tile map, is its order in layer. So you can have your tile map sit on top of each other. And that's exactly what we're going to do. And I'm going to have my player sit on top of just about everything, but I think he's going to be the same layer as perhaps the trees. That will allow him to appear in front or behind, depending on his Y position in the world. So I'm going to now rename this, and I'm going to call this tile map grass layer 0. I'm going to duplicate this 3 more times. This one, I'll call it tile map mountains layer 1. It's also the layer I can put things into if I don't want the player to be able to edit it, and still be above the grass layer. And while I'm at it, while I'm in the mountains layer, what I will do is I'll set its order in layer to 1, and I'm going to add a collider, 2D tile map collider. So this tile map collider 2D component to it. I don't think I need to do anything more. And this is because these next three layers, all of them are going to have an effect on the nav mesh and on the baking of the nav mesh, and also serve as, it's the baking of the nav mesh, and that's what basically stops the player from moving all over the place. So I don't want the player to be able to walk on top of the mountains. They can walk on hills and stuff, but not on top of the mountains. They can't walk on walls. And they can't walk on the big trees as well. So the next one here is a tile map construction layer. That's what I'm going to call it. Construction layer. This is the layer that we're going to be able to interact with in game. So I can place tiles, delete tiles from this layer. I can also do it here, but then in game I can also change those. And that's also the layer that I'm going to save data on. So I'm going to save the tiles in the world on that layer and restore those tiles on that layer when we load the game. And the other layers I don't have to worry about because they are not changing. And this one, and before I leave that, I'll just set the order in layer to 2 and also add a tile map collider 2D. Then the next one, the last one, is tile map trees layer. And this is purely just so I can show the sorting order. And this one, the layer is going to be 3, and it also will have a tile map collider 2D. And something to note as well, we will change this. I'll talk more about the sort order and the mode as well. Currently, all of our tile maps are set to mode chunk, which is the most efficient way for Unity to render it. So it's all just tries to get batched together and rendered in one go. Basically, whereas if it's individual, it's rendering each individual tile, and it's less efficient. But that's what you need to do if you want that, that kind of look where things can appear in front or behind based on their Y position. So if I go ahead and just hit play right now, and I'll get out and maximize play. I just noticed I have that. First off, the camera is just way too close. It's too close. That's what I find. So if you can play around in game mode and then look at how the world looks, and then when you stop playing, it won't remember it. It's going to just reset it. And so anyway, I know that it's about 9 thereabouts is kind of what I like. Yeah, I think 9's alright. It's not too bad. And then I guess, so if I just hit that again, so just to see what it looks like, in a bigger view. Yeah, I think it's okay. It's not bad. It looks like it means something to me. Well, to me it means grass. If I just jumped out and maximize on play. If I go into the frame debug, I just wanted to turn this on just to show you. You can look at, and it pauses the game when you're doing that too. You can see at how Unity is rendering the world. What is it doing? And you can see that these were all one batch. It says draw dynamic. You can click through them, and you can basically see how the world is getting rendered. And I guess that's it. Now, whether this is good or efficient or not, that I probably can't comment on, but the less you can set this number, the fewer that this number can be, basically this 15, the less you make it, the faster your rendering is going to be. That's just one basic way to think of it. And I guess another thing is could have looked at the profiler too to see what it's doing in there. And I guess, what is it doing? Perhaps the main thing it's doing is some rendering. Not very much. It's really not having to work at all. You can see it's pretty fast. It's not having to do much work at all to generate the scene. Okay, so that's pretty much that. I'll make sure to save. Well, with that saved, I guess that's all for this video. We've done a fair bit. We've created our tile maps, our first pixel arts. We set up the sprite assets. We set up our tile palette. We had a look at a bit about painting with the brushes, and especially the random brush, and how to use that. And we set up our camera. So now, yeah, that's pretty good. We've done pretty good. Next video is going to be all about creating our basic pixel art for our game. And that way at least we'll have some, material to work with, or I should say some assets to work with in our project. So, okay, I'll see you in the next video.